class. We are in part 2 of the fourth unit, right? Clustering. So in that clustering, we have go through all the what is the basic concept of clustering, and next different types of data available that is covered from the last two classes. So what are all the kinds of data variables available? Different types of variables.
Binary variable, nominal variable, ordinal, interval
Ordinal,
scaled,
interval scale,
mixed type, ratio scale.
ratio scale variable. Almost all covered, right? Mixed, of course, mixed type. So all these are the different kinds of variables. Let me go through all these things for a while, and after that I will go with the next concept. Is my screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So for dealing with the interval scale variables, since interval scale variables are of different ranges, first we need to normalize that, and for normalizing or for standardizing, we have selected the for this particular type of variable, we have selected the Z-score normalization. So here, instead of this is the mean and this is the standard deviation, and instead of standard deviation, here we have used mean absolute deviation for obtaining a better performance. So after standardizing, and that means after bringing all a different range of variables into the same range, what to do next? What is the next step? We can directly go for the distance calculation. Why? Because our ultimate goal is to bring this matrix. The ultimate goal is to bring this matrix. Why? Because usually clusters are formed based on the distance. Usually, that is the basic procedure based on the distance among the elements. So those objects or those records who fall closer to each other, they maybe fall within the same cluster, and those who fall that means whose dissimilarity is more. Those objects are belonging to the different clusters. Like that is the basic procedure. So here, so once the data is standardized into the fixed specific form, after that we need to, after standardization, we can go for the calculation. For that we are having familiar distance measures. Three distance measures are there: Euclidean distance, Manhattan distance, and Minkowski distance. So you can use any of the formula, and this formula is wrong. I will change it. I will change it. By mistake, I pasted some other formula. So like that we are having. And coming to the binary values, since the name indicates it includes only two values, right? And based on whether the binary variable is symmetric or asymmetric, we are having again. We can have based on that we can have different procedures to find out the distance. So for that we need the contingency table. For calculating the dissimilarities among the objects, we need the contingency table here. So this table elements represents the number of matches, number of mismatches. Like that, we can find on the table. And for what is the symmetric binary variable? Symmetric in the sense there is no weightage among the variable among the values. Whereas in case of asymmetric, we are having the weightage. So in case of symmetric, this is the dissimilarity formula, and in case of asymmetric, since there is a weightage for two values present in that particular variable. So which value can be neglected? Which value can be ignored? This negative value can be ignored if at all it is asymmetric. So this T indicates the case where both the objects values become zero. So that value can be ignored, and in this formula also we can remove it. Similarly here, we can also find similarity among the objects. That is also can be taken directly from the contingency table. So in this case, in this way, we can go with the binary variable. ఇది assignment code ఇచ్చాం కదా. I will ask in this class most probably. Okay, and coming to the dissimilarity, yes. And coming to the next one, categorical variable. So in case of categorical variables, we can go through this formula where P indicates the total number of categorical variables, right? And M indicates the number of matches. So based on this, we can go through the, you can directly use that formula to get the dissimilarity matrix or dissimilarities among the elements. And another alternative way also we have discussed, that is what? If at all dividing the one variable into number of binary variables. So the presence of variable is indicated with 1, whereas the absence of the variable is indicated with the 0. And after converting them into the number of binary variables, from there we can go through the method of binary variable, the procedure of the binary variable. And coming to the ordinal variables here, based on which we can assign numerics, in case of ordinal variables. Nikita చెప్పాలి.
Ranks.
Case of ranks. So in case of ordinal variables, based on ranks, we can convert that into the categorical. That means into the numerical. So here, each value is assigned with some rank. So after that, all those numerical values should be normalized, and this is the formula used for normalization. That is based on the rank and the maximum rank. And after normalization, we can go with the traditional way for calculating the dissimilarity. So here is an example also, and these are the ratio scale variables, which it is a positive measurement on the nonlinear scale. So it is of this form, and we have discussed 3 methods in that. Out of 3, we can go frequently. We can go with these 2 methods. That is, one is to transform the values using the logarithm, and other is to go with the other way is to treat them as the ordinal data like that. So here is an example. And coming to the variables of mixed type, here also we can handle the mixed type of variables based on this. And we have discussed for getting this value, we have discussed about 2 cases, and for getting this value also we have discussed about different scenarios. What if the particular variable is internal scaled, or if the variable is binary or categorical? Like that, we have different cases discussed. So with that, we can get the values of the dollar and Dij. So by substituting that in the formula, we can directly get the dissimilarity among the variables of the mixed type. And here is an example given in the last class. And this is all about, and here one more thing we are having, that is vector objects. So this is about more complex objects. So here calculating the dissimilarity, all those are not there. Since the objects are more complex, we can go with some non-metric similarity function. And cosine measure is one of the popularly used non-metric similarity function, and the formula is given here. Okay. And coming to the basic requirements of the clustering algorithm. So what's our next topic is to know about the clustering. Different clustering algorithms exist to form the clusters for a given data. So before going to the clustering algorithm, details of the clustering algorithm, first we need to know about the basic requirements of the clustering algorithm. So what are all the basic requirements? Suppose you have joined in your BTech first year. So what is the basic requirement? You need to complete your +2 with certain qualification like that. Suppose you want to join in CRR only, what is the basic requirement? You must attain so and so rank, or this is the constraint, this is the constraint. Like this, if you are if you are constructing it, if you are going with a clustering algorithm also, there is some basic requirement that should be satisfied by that clustering algorithm. So these are all the typical basic requirements of a clustering algorithm. The first one is scalability. So here the clustering algorithm should be scalable. That means it can be able to generate clusters even if the data set is too large. So next one is ability to deal with different types of attributes. So as we have discussed just now, there may be different types of attributes exist. So a clustering algorithm should be able to handle any kind of data. That means any kind of variable, it can be able to form the clusters from that. Similarly, we are having discovery of clusters with arbitrary shape. Generally, if you go with the distance measure, Euclidean and all those, you can only have clusters with spherical shapes. That means only round circle shaped clusters only you can form. But along with this, a clustering algorithm should be able to generate the clusters of arbitrary shape. Arbitrary shape in the sense like this. That means any shaped the cluster may be of any shape, not only round shape. Different shaped clusters also should be produced from the clustering algorithm. So what is the use in this sense? Suppose let's say. So suppose here you are having some data points in the cluster. Okay. Okay. Um, suppose having like this. So here if you observe, this is cluster C1 and this is C2 and this is C3. C1 is fine, right? Whereas in case of C2 and C3, we are having one more point which falls just out of the boundary, right? Actually, that is also belonging to the, that means this blue color point belonging to the cluster C3 actually, and this red point belonging to this cluster C2 actually. But because the cluster shape should be the cluster, because of the algorithms which generates only spherical shaped clusters, they don't consider this object into the cluster because they are out of the boundary. But actually, in reality, they are also belonging to this particular cluster. This point, let's say A, this belongs to cluster C3 only, and this belongs to C2 only. But because of the restriction that only spherical shaped clusters are generated from particular clustering algorithm, because of that restriction, they can't able to include that particular A and B into the cluster C3 and C2 respectively. So if at all your cluster is, that means if at all your clustering algorithm can able to generate arbitrary shaped clusters. If at all you have a clustering algorithm which can generate arbitrary shaped clusters, then I can generate cluster like this. Here also I can generate cluster like this. Any kind of shape I can generate. If at all that particular object or particular record belongs to this cluster, I can add that also into this group. So here it belongs to this point, discovery of clusters with arbitrary shape. So your clustering algorithm, the clustering algorithm we have selected should be able to generate not only spherical clusters, but also some different shaped clusters, arbitrary clusters also it can able to generate. The ability to deal with noisy data. So if at all there exists noise in the cluster, that should be effectively noise in the data that should be effectively handled by the clustering algorithm they have selected. Noise or outlet, both are same. And coming to this next one, incremental clustering and insensitivity to the order of input records. This is this joins 2 points separately actually. The first one is incremental clustering. Incremental clustering in the sense the clustering algorithm can incorporate newly inserted data. Suppose your algorithm is started creating clusters, and for example, that is the dynamic data, that is not the static data. With respect to time, the data is being added. So with the upcoming data also, it should be able to add those data values which are coming newly to the existing clusters. That means it should be incorporated the data. It should be incorporated the database updates. Database updates in the sense for the existing data set, some newly records may be added to the data set. That means the data set is updated repeatedly. In that case also, your clustering algorithm can able to perform clustering properly. And next, it should be insensitive to the order of input records. We shouldn't provide some constraints like input records should be in this order or should be in this order for generating efficient clusters. Like that constraint, we shouldn't pose on any clustering algorithm. That means any clustering algorithm shouldn't be shouldn't undergo through such kind of constraints. And high dimensionality. High dimensionality is number of having more many number of dimensions. Dimensions in the sense variables. So even though if the data is having high dimensionality, the clustering algorithm should be able to handle it. Should be able to generate in that case also. So constraint based clustering. So some clustering algorithms, some constraints, sometimes constraints may be provided by the user or the any administrator who provides you the task. So if at all any kinds of constraints are there, the algorithm should be able to form clusters by obeying all those constraints. And finally, the generated clusters should be interpretable and usable to the purpose for which we have generated. So these are all the basic requirements of the clustering. And next, coming to the types of clusters, we're having major categories of the clusters. Partitioning methods, we're having, that means we are having different methods for generating the clusters. And under each method, we're having some different specific methods, specific algorithms are there for which, based on which we can generate the clusters. So broadly, the major clustering methods are partitioned into 5 groups. Partitioning method is there, density-based method, grid-based method, model-based method, and hierarchical method. And all these are the specific methods or specific algorithms present in each and every method. For example, the partitional method, in that we're having K-means method, K-means algorithm, PALM, Clara, Clarence, etc. So like that, for under each particular method, we are having some specific algorithm for generating the cluster. And let's start with the partitioning method. As the name itself indicates, partitioning method partitions the data into different parts. It first partitions the data into different parts, roughly it partitions, and after that, and based on certain condition actually. First it decides the K value. K indicates the number of partitions. So first it should take the K value from the user, and based on that it should make the data into total of K partitions, such that partitions in the sense, suppose we are having data like this, we can make one partition here, one partition here, one partition here, like that. Like that, it partitions the data into different groups actually, such that each group should contain at least one element. There is no rule that all are equal partitions or unequal partitions. That is not a constraint here. The constraint is, the rule is, each partition should have at least one element. That means there is no empty partition. And another rule is, each data element should be fall under any of the partition. So based on those two rules, it makes the data into different partitions, and initially, and after that, based on certain iterative relocation technique, based on by following certain iterative relocation techniques, by applying some iterative procedure, the elements in the data, the elements in the partitions are relocated into the different partitions. For example, here we have an element A, here we have an element B, and here C, here D, here E is there, here F is there. And by applying in the first iteration, by applying the iterative relocation technique in the first iteration, and we came to know that A belongs to the partition, third partition, F belongs to the second partition, and where C belongs to the fourth partition, D belongs to the first partition, like that. So based on the method of relocation we have applied, we need to apply some relocation methods, and based on the method of relocation, the data is automatically relocated from one partition to another partition. And after that, in the second iteration, again we came to know that this D is actually fall into the second partition, F is actually fall into the third partition, like that. So like that, in each iteration, the data is automatically relocated into the different from one partition to the other partition, and finally, after reaching certain number of iterations based on certain threshold, based on certain constraint, the process stops, and after that, the total data is properly divided into the partitions, where each partition form a cluster. So that is the partition method, and here we are having two methods for two algorithms we are having for doing partition method, partitioning clustering. K-means is there, K-medoid is there. Where K-means we have used cluster mean for performing partitions. Based on the cluster mean, we are going to form the clusters, and whereas in K-medoid, based on the centroid of the cluster, we can able to form the clusters based on the centroid. And coming to the second one, hierarchical method. So as the name itself indicates that hierarchy is on some level-wise approach. So here it decomposes the data. So total data is there. So the total data is decomposed into different hierarchies. So hierarchical decomposition is done here, and by following two ways. So two ways are there for getting this hierarchical clustering. One is agglomerative, which is also called bottom up, and another one is divisive, which is called as top down. So in the bottom up approach, in the bottom up, imagine a tree. Just imagine a tree here. For example, we are having data like this because we are doing some hierarchical decomposition of the data. If suppose this is our data, actually this is our initial data. In the bottom up approach, here each circle, that means each leaf node represents a data object or a record. So in this data set, how many records we are having means totally 8 records we are having. In this data set, totally we are having 8 records. Like that, imagine that. So initially, we need to start with each, and we need to assume that each record belongs to one group. Group in the sense cluster. That means initially we are having, in this example, initially we are having 8 clusters. That means what is our assumption? We assume that each record belonging to a one cluster. And after that, by applying some procedure, we can merge some of the clusters. So that in the next higher level, we can have reduced number of clusters. So in this particular level, how many clusters are there? In this level, how many clusters are there?
8, ma'am.
8. Why? Because we are assuming that each data, yes, each object is a cluster in the initial level. So in this example, when we are moving to the next higher level, we are having only 4 clusters because we are performing some merging process based on certain approach. By following certain constraint or certain methodology, we are merging the similar kind of objects together, and they are formed as a cluster. So in this cluster, we are now in this particular cluster, we are having 2 elements, 2 objects. Whereas in this level, we are having only one object in each cluster. Like that, we need to merge the clusters and we need to move further. That means we can move to the further level. So this process is repeated until certain condition is satisfied. So until suppose that condition is satisfied here itself. Suppose in this particular level, that particular condition is satisfied, we can stop the process and we are left with 4 clusters. If suppose that condition satisfies at this level, what is that condition? What is that procedure? You can, that means that procedure and condition changes for each algorithm. We are having different algorithms, just like for the partition method, we are having K-means and K-medoid, right? So here also for hierarchical methods, we are having bridge method and CURE method, etc. So each algorithm, either bridge or CURE or whatever, each algorithm has its own procedure. In its own procedure of merging the initial clusters and its own stopping criteria of this process like this. So this is the bottom-up approach. What is the top-down approach, which is called as divisive approach? What is the top-down approach? Quite opposite to this one. So in the top-down approach, we need to first club all the data values together and form a single cluster with it. And after that, what we need to do? Just guess.
Splitting the clusters, ma'am.
Yes, we need to split one. Initially, we have one cluster, right? So in the next iteration, we need to split the cluster into 2 clusters, and we need to check the condition, whether the particular condition satisfies or not, whether the particular threshold reaches or not. That is, as I told, that is purely based on the method we have selected, algorithm we have selected. And after that, in the next iteration, again those clusters are split into some other. Suppose this cluster may be split into 2 clusters. This may be split into 2 or 4. That we don't know. That is based on the algorithm we have used. So the scenario is at each level, the clusters in the previous level are splitted to the more number of clusters in the next level. That process is repeated until we reach the leaf node or or we can satisfy certain criteria or conditions. So this is about hierarchical method of clustering. We're having agglomerative and divisive. And somebody making disturbance, mute yourself. Number 80. And coming to the third one, density-based methods. Just you can assume the meaning of density in physics. I think you can get that. What is the density? What density in the sense? In general term, we have a sense whenever we talk about density. What is the density?
Most populated area, ma'am. అంటే ఎక్కువ ఐటమ్స్ ఉండాలి మ్యామ్ ఆ రీజన్ లో, దాని డెన్సిటీ అంటాం.
అంటే ఎక్కువ ఐటమ్స్ ఉంటే ఎక్కువ డెన్సిటీ ఉన్నట్టు. I don't know how it's called in English. In Telugu, we can use the word samdrata. I don't know in English. Directly English meaning is density itself. Thickness, we can say that, thickness. Density in the sense thickness.
Volume.
So, not volume. Volume in the sense capacity. Suppose, for example, in your house, based on the volume of the house, 10 people can accommodate in that house, for example. That is the volume. Density in the sense, if suppose there are only 2 people in that house, where 10 people can accommodate, in that house only 2 people are there, then I can say that the home is less dense. The density is low at that home or at that area. In a volume is nothing but the capacity of that. Suppose the volume of the vessel, volume of the place in the sense capacity. Original capacity is indicated with volume, whereas density in the sense the thickness. That means if you consider the same example which you have given, number of what you have given, more number of items like that, right? If at all more number of items is accumulated at the same place, we can say that that particular place is with having high density. If the data points are dispersed, suppose if the data set is like this, that means imagine this is a scatter plot. If the data set is like this, which indicates that which seems to be all data points are fall within the same place, in the sense all are close to each other, right? Suppose the same number of data points I have, and whenever you draw a scatter plot for the same number of data points for a different data set. This is data set A and this is data set B. So I can say that which data set is more dense, or which graph is looks to be more dense.
A, ma'am.
A is more dense than B. That means spreading of the data points. If at all elements or whatever you call items or elements or data points, if at all are fall in the same place, that means if the thickness of that place or vessel or whatever is heavy, then we can say that it is highly dense. If at all the data is distributed sparsely in the sense with by maintaining certain distance, we can say that particular graph or that particular data points are less dense. So like this here, that is the basic concept of density. So here, density-based methods in the sense, till now we know the distance-based clustering. That means we can use either Euclidean or Manhattan. Like that, based on that, we can form some clusters. So that is only purely based on distance. So whereas we may have this kind of data sets also in reality. In reality, we may have this kind of data sets also, where each data point may be distributed very sparsely. So in that case, it is very meaningless to go with the calculating distances. to go, that means the distance based clustering is not worked out here. And another case is there where we need to go for this method. Another case is that in distance based method, we can only form spherical shaped clusters. So if you don't want to form spherical, round shaped clusters, spherical shaped clusters you don't want. You want the arbitrary shaped clusters. That means based on the data you want the cluster, not based on the shape of the cluster. Then also you can go for the density based method. So it purely considers the density of the data points fall within the neighborhood of an element, and based on that, that means based on number of points exist in that neighborhood, it can form the clusters. And DBSCAN, optics, all these are the DenQ or the examples of the density based method. And coming to this one, grid based method. Grid in the sense you can, by just reading this word itself, you can have an imagination of grid in the sense like this, as shown in the picture. We can have some boxes structure in your mind. You can get some image, get the image like that, right? So here in grid based method, the data space initially which we have, the data space is divided into divided in terms of grids. The data space is divided in terms of grids, and clusters are formed based on the grids, not based on density, not based on the distance. So here, if you observe, in this particular grid, no data exists. So here, from here, there is no cluster formed. So if you observe here, it forms a cluster based on this particular data point. Like this, it does not consider the density or it does not consider the distance. It only directly forms the cluster based on the distribution of the data on the grid. So, and the major advantage of this is faster processing time. Compared with the remaining methods, these grid-based methods can result in faster processing time. And we have two such methods exist, two such algorithms exist under grid-based methods. And along with this existing categorization of the methods, we are also having, yes, this is the last method, model-based. So model-based methods, as the name itself indicates here, based on it proposes, it poses a model, and based on that model only, the clustering is performed. And here we are having two methods, and which follow some model for generating the cluster. And this is the last method we are having. And based on the, along with the existing methods, we're also having, we need to know about this classes of clustering. We need to know about this. So we are having two classes of clustering. Two topics specifically we need to know about the clusters. So first one is clustering high dimensional data. So high dimensionality in the sense, as I said in the beginning of the class, more number of variables. So clustering high dimensional data is really challenging. Why? Because to handle too many number of dimensions, the process of forming the clusters may be mislead sometimes. So here, in such case, instead of going for the existing methods like grid-based or density-based or distance-based, to handle the high dimensional data, that means to form the clusters with the high dimensional data, subspace clustering is suggested. Subspace clustering in the sense, here based on the, that means here the entire data is not considered at a time. The entire data is not considered at a time. Till now, we are considering the entire data. We are partitioning the entire data, or we are making some hierarchies, or we are making some grids over there, and or we are making some density analysis by considering the entire data like that. But here we are not considering that, and we are making some subspace clustering here. So based on the part of data, we are considering the part of data. That means the subspace of the data we are considering, and we form the clusters. Again, we consider the subspace of the data. Again, we are doing some clusters. Like that, this approach works. And here we are having two methods are there: initial subspace clustering method and frequent pattern-based methods. And these are the sub algorithms in that. And second class of clustering task is constraint-based clustering. So here we may be having some user-specified constraints or application-oriented constraints. That algorithm should be able to cope up with those specified constraints, and should be able to build clusters by cope up with these constraints. So like that, we are having different kinds of different kinds of clustering methods are there, and different classes of clustering are there. And let's coming to the each of the methods again, because under each method we are having certain algorithms in our syllabus. We need to know about that. Let's first consider the partitioning method. So here is the partitioning method. In that we are having k-means and k-midites, right? So first consider k-means. So in k-means, what is the algorithm? What is the procedure? In which way we are going to form the clusters in k-means? That we need to know. In which way we are going to form the clusters in k-means. So here, first, don't go through the algorithm. Let me explain some pictorial way, in some pictorial way. In k-means, the basic scenario is out of different objects we're having. Let's say these are the data objects we're having. Suppose these are the data objects. So initially, randomly, we need to first, before that we need to fix k. This is the first and foremost thing. K in the sense it indicates the number of clusters. We need to first fix the k, and after that, if suppose my k is 2, that means I want to form only 2 clusters. So after fixing k, I need to randomly pick k number of data items, and I just imagine that those items are the means, cluster means. Those items are the cluster means. In this example, I'm just randomly pick 2 data items. Okay, and I assume that these data items are the cluster means because I want to form 2 clusters, right? If you consider any cluster, it is having some mean. Mean can be obtained by how? A cluster mean can be obtained by how we can get the cluster mean?
Sum of items in that, ma'am, by divided by number of items in that cluster.
Items in that cluster, very good. So the average of the items present in that cluster. So initially I don't have any cluster. That's why my initial assumption is I just randomly pick 2 items and I assume that those are the cluster mean. And after that, if that is the mean, every item within that cluster should be close to that mean. So what is the next step? I need to calculate the distance between that mean and each and every item. And based on that distance, the items which are closest to that mean are fall into that particular cluster. This is mean, suppose this is M1 and this is M2. And now based on the distance, the items which are closest to this M1. So based on the distance, I can make 2 clusters clearly, right? So that's what I need to do here. I need to calculate distance between each and every point to this mean. I need to calculate distance between each and every point. I need to calculate. And the ones which are falling closest to the M1, all are belonging to this cluster C1, and the items which are closest to M2 are belonging to the cluster C2. You may ask here one thing. You can ask like this. So suppose if at all I'm having item here, and it is far from both C1 and C2. So what is the position of this item? So I can ignore that. I can ignore that, and I can treat it as an outlier or a noise, because I can only form spherical shaped clusters. That means only round shaped clusters I can form with the k-means, because it uses the distance methods, Euclidean or Manhattan or Minkowski. With those, whenever the clustering algorithm uses distance methods, whenever it forms the clusters based on the distance, it can only form spherical shaped clusters. So if at all you are going for the spherical shaped clusters, you may not consider outliers. So you can ignore that. You no need to bother about this. So like this, in the first iteration, I can form 2 clusters. And in the next iteration, what I need to do? In the next iteration, actually this M1 and M2 are the imaginary means, right or not? This and M1 and M2. What do you
Yes,
say?
ma'am.
Yes, imaginary, because we imagine that these are the means. Now we are having the clusters. Initially, we don't have clusters. That's why we need to imagine. Now we are having the clusters. So now again we need to recalculate the mean of each cluster based on data points which are actually fall under C1 and which are actually fall under C2. So I need to consider, for calculating the mean of C2, I need to consider, let me change the color. I need to consider these data points along with the mean point also I need to consider. So again I need to consider all the data points which are fall within the cluster, and again I need to calculate the mean. So what is the second iteration? In the second iteration, again I need to calculate the mean of the data points. For example, in cluster C1, I have calculated the mean and I found that this is the mean. This is the new mean. I can make it as M1 bar. This is the new mean. And here also, after calculation, I found that this is the M2 bar is the new mean. So what to do in the next iteration? Again, same process. So based on the obtained mean, again we need to reform the clusters. Based on the obtained mean, again you need to reshape the clusters. So by considering this new mean value, again we need to calculate the distance between each and every point with this mean. And next what to do? Again we need to calculate the distance between each and every point with this mean. And after that, again same procedure. Again based on the distance which are closest to that mean, all those points are fall within that particular cluster. Which are far from that are belonging to that some other cluster like that. So again in another iteration we are having, sorry. So again in another iteration we can have two new clusters we are having. So suppose this is our new cluster. అర్థమైందా ఎలా వచ్చిందో? So like this in each iteration we can have new clusters formed. Why? Because in each iteration we are changing the mean. So if the mean is changed, again we are going to reshape the clusters. If the cluster is reshaped, again we need to calculate the mean. So first the mean is changed, and based on the mean we are changing the cluster, and based on the cluster we are finding the mean again. If at all there is a new mean, new average is there, based on that we can you can form the clusters again. So that process is repeated until there is no more change in the mean value. That means what? If there is no more change in the mean value, in the sense the clusters are not changed. Suppose you have done the process until suppose n number of times you have done the same process, and after n, that means after 10 iterations, your cluster you observe that the mean value is fixed, the mean value is constant, which means that the data values are not changed, which means that the clusters which are formed after 10 iterations are the perfect clusters. So we can stop there. So that is about the k-means. In such way, you can form the exact clusters with the existing data. So here is the procedure. Initially, we need to consider the entire data, and we need to consider the number of clusters, which is k, and output is k clusters. And here assign the values, assign initial values for the means. That means we need to first take the initial value. And after that, initial values means we need to take the random values as the means initially. And assign each item to the cluster which is having closest mean. So which item is fall closer to that particular mean, that point can be assigned to that cluster. And again, we need to calculate the new mean. And this process is repeated until convergence criteria is met. What is the convergence criteria? Until we get the same value for the mean, or until the clusters are not changed. So that is the convergence criteria. Is this clear or not? Anybody just explain the procedure again?
ఫస్ట్ డిఫరెంట్ క్లస్టర్ ఒక mean find out చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
మా వాయిస్ కట్ అయింది,
mean
ఇంకొకసారి
బట్టి
చెప్పండి. వాయిస్ కొంచెం బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది, ఇంకొకసారి
ఐటమ్
చెప్పండి.
సెట్ కి మీన్
ఐటమ్ సెట్ కి
మీన్ ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
ఓకే.
మీన్ వచ్చిన మీన్ కి ఐటమ్ సెట్ కి డిఫరెన్స్ డిస్టెన్స్ క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసి దాన్ని క్లస్టర్ అదే దగ్గరగా ఉన్నవన్నీ ఒక క్లస్టర్ అలా ఫామ్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్. మళ్ళీ అగైన్ క్లస్టర్ సపరేట్ చేసిన తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ఈచ్ క్లస్టర్ కి మీన్ అండ్ దెన్ మళ్ళీ సపరేట్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
ఫస్ట్ ఇనిషియల్
అలా
ప్రొసీజర్
సేమ్ మీన్ వచ్చే వరకు నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ఒక సెట్ తీసుకొని నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ డిజైర్ క్లస్టర్స్ ఎన్ని కావాలో చూసుకుంటాం మ్యామ్.
ఓకే.
దాన్ని బట్టి మీన్ సపరేట్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
సపోజ్ నాకు 3 క్లస్టర్స్ కావాలి, అప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తాం? సపోజ్
సపరేట్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
మై కే వాల్యూ ఇస్ 3, అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి నేను?
3 క్లస్టర్స్ కింద సపరేట్ చేయాలి మ్యామ్.
డేటా మొత్తాన్నా? ఇనిషియల్ గా ఎలా సపరేట్ చేస్తాం స్టార్టింగ్ లో? తర్వాత అయితే మనకు తెలుసు ఎలా చేయాలి, ఎందుకంటే మీన్ దగ్గర నుంచి డిస్టెన్స్ తీసుకొని మనం క్లస్టర్స్ ఫామ్ చేస్తాం. స్టార్టింగ్ లోనే డేటాని ఎలా సపరేట్ చేస్తాం?
మామూలుగా సపరేట్ చేసేయచ్చు మ్యామ్. మన సపరేట్ చేస్తాం మ్యామ్.
ఎలా చేస్తాం?
ర్యాండమ్ గా సపరేట్ చేసేయచ్చు మ్యామ్.
No. Randomly we are choosing the means only. Randomly we are not forming the clusters. Okay, randomly is the right. Kani randomly we are choosing the means of the clusters only. That means total data set lo only మనం ఇప్పుడు for example నేను k is equal to 2 అంటే only 2 data items నే random గా మనం means లాగా సెట్ చేసుకోవాలి. So I am fixing one data item as the mean for the one cluster, and I am setting another data item as the data item in the sense record or object, whatever, or tuple. So another record as the mean for the second cluster. So we are not initially forming the clusters randomly. We are initially taking the means of the clusters only. And after that, we are assuming that these are the real means. And we are now forming the clusters based on that mean. How to form the cluster
okay,
there?
ma'am.
There we need to find out the distance between each point with that mean, and based on the distance we are forming the clusters. So after that what to do?
Okay,
Once
ma'am.
the clusters are formed, after that what to do? Once the clusters are formed, what to do? Again we need to
mean find out chestam.
Yes, we need to find out the mean again. Same process repeat avutundi. If at all we are having mean, we need to find the distance between the points and the mean, and based on the distance all the closest points are fall into that one group. Similarly here also all the closest points to the second mean or fall to that second group. Once mean is formed, the new cluster is formed. Once new cluster is formed, again the mean should be calculated for that. So this process is repeated until there is no change in the clusters, formed clusters, or there is no change in the mean. So initially, how to form the cluster in the sense? That is also based on the distance calculation with the mean. But how to find the mean initially? That we need to take randomly. So k number of points we need to pick up randomly, and we assume that each point is a mean of each cluster. Are you getting this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts in that? I heard that this is already covered in your third year. Anyway, it's okay. There is a lot of gap. Avaleda cover of third year lo. Okay. Anyway, నేను మళ్ళీ అయింది అదే మీకు గ్యాప్ వచ్చేసింది కాబట్టి మర్చిపోయి ఉండొచ్చు. ఎనీవే నేను ఐ విల్ రిపీట్ ఇట్ అగైన్ ఇన్ ద నెక్స్ట్ క్లాస్. అండ్ టైం కూడా అయిపోయింది. నేను అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకుంటాను ఫస్ట్. ఇప్పుడు అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకొని క్లోజ్ చేసేస్తాను. జస్ట్ వెయిట్ ఫర్ ఎ సెకండ్.